I call them my divergent thinkers. You know, instead of special needs, I say these are my divergent thinkers because they just think differently than we do.
What does that look like? How do you navigate the parent and help them with both sets of children at the same time? To not neglect either side.
It won't always be equal, but what you do want to do is pay attention to resentment. You know, when it comes to a child who is typical and they're the sibling of a child who is neurodiverse. Because when you can assign your children purpose and educate them on what kind of sibling they are, you empower them and what the place that they play in that house. Then they automatically just like, oh.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Natasha.
And I'm Tiffany.
And welcome to In the Middle. Today we have Summer Stallworth, who is a behavioral strategist, and she's going to talk to us about this generation. There's so much going on that has never been experienced before by one generation in this lifetime. So welcome, Summer and Natasha. Tell us about our guest.
Oh my gosh, you guys, this is a very special guest because she is so near and dear to my heart. I've known her for almost 2 years now, and she has been a support to me and my family when it comes to just needing wisdom of how to be a better mother, how to parent my child in this generation. She has been that anchor for me. And what's even more amazing is that she is the founder of Fearless Love Parenting. So Summer, welcome, and let us just know a little bit more about you.
Yes. Well, first of all, ladies, thank you for having me here. This is amazing that you're providing space for us to come and share our stories, our journeys with the rest of the world. So thank you. Again, my name is Summer Stallworth. I'm from Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
I was born and raised in the inner cities, and I didn't come from the best life, family life. My family were drug dealers, you know, and so I know that's a heavy thing to talk about, but when we're talking about family, this is very important to me because I find that it's very ironic that the Lord saw fit to choose me to partner with him when it comes to families. Now, God has done a work in my family, but over the years, I grew up with a lot of complex trauma, things of that nature. And so when I went away to school, I was like, I'm going to run and I'm never coming back. And that's when the Lord got a hold to my heart. And once he changed me and encountered me, it changed my perspective about life, about my own family. I began to have an understanding on how the enemy works when it comes to family. And so how I got started with family and this whole idea of fearless love parenting was when I was 6 years old. I remember this bright-eyed, beautiful boy named Darian. And he had the deepest dimples. And I was only 6 years old. We were in the same class, and I knew he was different. I knew that there was something about him special. I just didn't know what it was. And all of the other children were afraid to come near him because he was so different. And he had this limp as he walked and things of that nature. And I would carry his books. If you messed with him, you messed with me. We were best friends. He couldn't talk to me. He couldn't do any of that. But I just felt my heart drawn near to him. And he ended up dying at a young age, and that broke my heart. It devastated me. And so that kind of a pattern followed me throughout my life. I would go to different schools, and I remember a blind boy who he couldn't see, and I would take up for him. I would take care of him. And as I began to go throughout my journey, I started to notice that pattern, that everywhere I went, children would just be drawn to me, families would be drawn to me, or everything that I did was related to family. Every job that I've ever had was related to family. So I'm like, wait a minute. It wasn't until exactly
The thumbprint of the Lord.
there is a pattern here. And so one day I was at the altar and I was praying to God. At this point, I already had my bachelor's degree in psychology, and I also had my master's degree in child developmental psychology. And so I remember the Lord saying, you know, I want you to partner with me, and I want you to believe with me that the beauty of what family means to the world, I want that to be restored. I want that to be healed. And will you partner with me? And I said, yes, I'll partner with you. And that's when I finally took ownership of what God was leading me into. I didn't know the details. And then he turned around and said, I want you to go back to school. And I was like, no, you didn't tell me.
Wait. If you got a master's degree, you know the work that comes with that.
And so I went back to school, and I received a master's degree in child behavior analysis.
So your second master's degree?
My second master's degree, yes. And I started working with children on the spectrum. I call them my divergent thinkers. You know, instead of special needs, I say these are my divergent thinkers because they just think differently than we do. And I fell in love with it, and I started serving families through Fearless Love Parenting.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So Fearless Love Parenting was birthed from a place. There's actually a song that's called No Fear in Love. It's of a popular worship leader. And when you say there's no fear in love, that means you take what you have, what you've been given, what God is giving you, and you love fearlessly. And that means whatever comes with that, you know, whether it be you have a child with autism, or you have a child with Down syndrome, or ADHD, or whatever it is God gave you courage to love fearlessly. The child, whatever child, it can be a neurotypical child. That means just typical child. You can love them courageously and unconditionally. And so that's what Fearless Love started out from, that idea that I want to come alongside of parents and help them to reclaim that God-given identity of what you have, what God is giving you, and not compare that with anything else, you know? Beautiful. And so I created a 6-step system within Fearless Love Parenting. And what I do is I take care of the parents first. Because a lot of times when you have services, it's just, oh, how can we fix my child? But I like to go with the family because you go all the way into their history. How was your parents? You know, let's go deep here so you can recognize the things that would hinder your parenting now. There are certain things when we glean from our parents. We look at our parents and we see them as an example, and we take that, but we don't realize the things that is not applicable for our generation of children. And that is important. So that's what Fearless Love does, is empower you in your motherhood, empower you in your fatherhood, so that you can take ownership of the identity that rests underneath your roof and how to present that to the rest of the world.
That is so powerful. And I think it speaks measures to just you as a person and like the Lord's heart. You just have the softest, sweetest spirit. And I think, you know, the Bible talks about whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me. And in society, you know, people that have disabilities or special needs or neurodivergent can be looked at, you know, as less than. And the fact that you at a young age saw value in them, and at 6 years old, like you were able to call that out and you knew that, I think it just speaks measures of you and your heart. And so it's honestly an honor to share this space with you and just to hear your heart. I think a lot of people need to hear that because whether they're children or other people just in society, we can so often be hard-hearted toward people that are just walking through things in life that maybe we don't understand. And so hopefully after this conversation, we can get a better understanding of how to even come alongside friends. If you don't have someone in your family that has a neurodivergent child or family member, we can come alongside those that do and be
Absolutely.
better as the body of Christ at
Yeah.
creating safe spaces
That's absolutely
for them.
right.
So
And that makes me think of just how you were just affectionately calling the children you get to work with, you know, just calling them, okay, they're not special needs. They're my divergent children.
Yeah.
And it just made me think about parents, right, that are trying to have a child. Maybe it's their first child, their third child, and they've had all neurotypical children, and they
Yes.
find out that their third child is different. That sometimes there is a grieving.
Oh yeah, for
You
sure.
know, or even if you found out that, okay, like my child has a disability, right? So how would you help a parent or a family really come together in unity to help them grieve, but also celebrate the gift that they are
Absolutely.
given?
You hit the nail on the nose. First of all, you have to accept the fact that you're grieving, right? So when you hear that, you have this idea, because we've been conditioned that way
Yeah.
as you know, Americans or people in general, that this is the way it's going to go. You're going to get pregnant, you're going to have a healthy child, and it's going to look like this, it's going to sound like this, it's going to develop like this. And when you have that in your mind, that's what you're expecting.
right.
And so once you discover that your child was diagnosed with some neurological disability or emotional or whatever, you know, psychological disability, then you have to take yourself and say, oh, that normal child that I was expecting and anticipating is no more. All right. And so that's where the grieving part starts. So first you need to tend to yourself, tend to your own heart, go through those steps of grieving. And that's one, the denial. You're going to go through denial. And you're going to want to say, no, I think we just need to do this, or I think we just need to do that. And then you're going to go through anger. Why me? Why my child? You know, and then you're going to go through the process of, what is the next one? I'm going blank here. But you're going to,
What are you saying? Acceptance?
I think, acceptance is one of them. That's the one that's the most important, because you want to get to that phase of accepting what you have. Therefore, you're not spending your time and spending your resources trying to fix your child. And that's a part of, you know, accepting what you have and then going from there. And so that's the biggest thing I would tell any parent. You have to acknowledge it.
You said something about we've been conditioned. So I don't have kids yet.
Yes.
And of course, at my age, I mean, you would think I'm a 90-year-old that still wants to have kids by the way the doctors treat you, right?
Yes.
And I just wonder, in watching others that have had children around me, and then even just neighbors or people I don't know that well, let's say, who have had children that are, to your point, not special needs. They think different, or their bodies are different. Some of these families that you can kind of see the difference of what you're talking about, those that do the steps you're talking about and those that don't.
Yes.
And those that do what you're talking about and also say, Lord, use this. Like, if me, let your will be done. And then there maybe are hardships that with a child that's not in a wheelchair, let's say, they don't have to do. But there's joy, and you can see these families that the Lord gives grace and blesses in a way that the typical normal kid, life's so fast paced, and your parents are pushing those kids even harder in ways to succeed. Let's say that these kids are not able to, even if they wanted to. Can you talk about that, just the difference of the normal and then conditioning? Because God is so good in these situations that the family unit sometimes is stronger, where they're able to go so many different ways, and they're not stuck together to help because of this child. Talk about that, what you've seen, work, not work.
Yes. Okay. So you're absolutely right. Individuals and families that go through the grieving process and allow themselves to get to that place of acceptance, that's when you see the level of peace come upon you. And then you start to see those blinders, the blockage that comes when you're just like, no, this cannot be my story. I have to fix it. This is making my life harder. This is making my marriage harder. Those are real things. And families are going through that. I mean, divorces happen at a high rate when you have a child with special needs.
I heard it was at 80%. Is that true?
Well, I don't know if it's quite that high, but it's high.
Okay.
You know, and you could be right. I just don't know those numbers offhand, but it's real. It's hard. It's difficult. But if you can have someone to come alongside of you to shift that perspective,
Right.
to help you to reclaim the gift that you've been given and find that sweet spot of, oh, I see. This was more about what you want to do in me, Lord. This is more about what you want to use our family to do to bring the greatest reward to yourself.
Because how many nonprofits have started in ministries out of hardship?
Absolutely.
Those that lean into it and allow the Lord to
Yes.
expand.
Because your story ministers to me. Your story ministers to me. Your family story ministers to me. And the reason why God set us in family the way he does is because it speaks about the gospel of Jesus. It tells a story. And that story, we don't get to say one is better than the other.
Right.
You know, we don't get to decide that because it all works. Because there's somebody out there who needs to hear that mom and that father who has a child with a disability, but yet still they're thriving.
Yeah.
There's a particular mom on social media that I follow. She's an influencer, but she just celebrates her son with autism, and she brings so much joy to so many mothers and fathers out there. And I believe that is the beauty of it. You have to, you know, if you have a neurotypical child, you're going to have some challenges there too. If you have a neurodiverse child, there are definitely going to be some challenges there
Share
too.
the difference of the two.
Okay, so a neurotypical child is your quote unquote, what I say, condition as your normal developing child. The brain is developing normally, and you're
Hitting the marks.
hitting the marks, the developmental marks. And then your neurodivergent child, they have some type of neurological disability. That means that either they're autistic, they're ADHD or Down syndrome. Something is not quote unquote normal when it comes to the developing brain, right? And a lot of times parents, of course, another part of the grieving process is the guilt. You think it's because, oh, I shouldn't have had those shots. I shouldn't have took this medication, or I shouldn't have done this and I shouldn't have done that. And it's just like, no, it's a storyline.
So it sounds like you also have to get to a place of surrender, because if we believe what Psalm 139 says, that the Lord knit us together in our mother's womb,
Yes.
like, none of these children are surprised to God. Like
That's
he
right.
created them that way. And so being able to see the value and the beauty, but then also being able to come alongside a parent and understand how there could be grief there. Because I can
Yes,
imagine that can be hard.
absolutely.
Everyone wants to see their child thrive in environments or hit those milestone markers or
Yes.
leave their home and get married, because a lot of these children may never leave home.
Yeah.
And then you have the worry of, but what about when I'm not here anymore? And so I think that it's, fair to grieve that and
Absolutely.
to process through life looking different, but also I imagine a peace, getting to the place of celebrating and saying, God, you
Absolutely.
gave me this child just like this. I have
Yes.
4 kids. They're all so different, and they're, quote unquote neurotypical, but they're all so different. I mean,
Yes.
every one of them is just, it's insane how different they are, but I can see the value and the beauty in each of them. And it sounds like the same can be said of parents of neurodivergent children. So
No, that is absolutely right. And I think it's necessary that you must go through that process.
Yeah.
You have to give yourself that. And no one can tell you when that time is. It's your journey.
What do you say to the
know?
parent that's angry at God and stuck there? And why me just angry?
Well, I would say, of course, you need support. You need someone to reach out to. At that point, whether it be a family member, a therapist, when you're angry with God, sit there in that moment. Sit there. But regardless, you can't sit there too long, because you have to begin to tend to the garden that you've been given. Yeah. So it's like in that process and you're angry at God, be angry.
Yeah.
Talk to
He can
God.
handle
Be
it.
real. He can handle it.
so big, yeah.
You know, he is a big God. And I guarantee you, as you take that before the Lord and you say, God, what did you do?
Yeah.
Why did I get this, a child like this? Why did you do this to my child? And he was speaking to those places at the right time.
Yeah.
One thing I know when it comes to grief, he's like, will you allow me to sit with you in the pain? I'm not in a hurry. I'm long suffering. So I would come with you. I would sit with you. I would be with you. And I know when to bring you up.
Yeah.
I know when to pull you out of that. And so when we can trust that, the whole process of parenthood
Yeah.
is about trusting God.
It is. It really is. I mean, but like you were saying, because you have a passion for children and family, but then even the Lord has given you a passion to really even equip mothers,
Yes,
right?
for sure.
And I think that even for me with raising 3 daughters and like how Tiffany mentioned that she has 4 children and they're all so different. And I think even for me of realizing, okay, I have my oldest one, my middle one, my baby, and seeing their different personalities and then coming to terms that, hey, you know what? There is something different about this child, right? And I think I've been through that process of grieving and guilt, and I'm trying to do all the right things, but there's also been this place, again, of acceptance, of knowing that as their parent, as their mom and dad, God's gonna lead me to who I need to be led to. And I'd love for you to just share, just even, practically, right? If there's a mom or a father that's listening and they're like, okay, I'm listening to this. I think my child may be a neurotypical or neurodivergent. What are some clues that parents can notice to where it's like, okay, it's time to possibly go see someone or reach out for help? Because you can have your own struggle and you can be in denial, right? You may have teachers coming to you telling you, hey, we see this is going on. So it's like, kind of sober us up, right? As parents to like give us permission to begin to reach out.
First of all, trust your instinct.
Yeah.
That's first. Trust what God gave you to notice and to discern what's going on with your child. And I do know that certain things in our own personal life can get in the way of that. But first, trust if you're noticing something is just not right. But what you want to look for is during those first few months up until 2 years old, you don't want to make any decisions because it's still so early. It's still they're so young, right? So you don't want to just jump the gun right there. A lot of times you may find that, well, my child is not talking. They're 2 years old. What's going on? You start to freak out. Your child may not talk into their 3 and they're perfectly fine.
Yes,
right?
that's my daughter right now. She's not talking like completely fully. She turned 3.
Yes.
But we know it's there. But like that motherly instinct is, I know it's going to be there, right? I think if it was like 4 years old, I would probably be like, oh my, that's pre-K.
Well, it's your youngest one, right? So she probably has everyone talking for her.
She does.
Exactly. That's a great point.
Yeah.
And you have to consider things of that nature. I like to say, always pause. If you're a parent, practice pausing. You don't have to rush to a conclusion or decision right away. And
Listen, does that not go for all of us? And our parents, I'm like, practice the pause. That's just settling in my spirit.
Exactly.
As a parent, keep going.
And so that's what I tell parents all the time is we are so accustomed, and like I think someone mentioned earlier, or I was talking to someone earlier, is we're in a rush here in America.
Yes.
We're in such a rush. I have to, something's wrong. I'm freaking out. Pause. Assess the situation. Observe the situation.
That's so wise.
And how long have this been going on? Is it a continual thing? Is it getting worse? You have to be an investigator as a parent.
Don't you think too, the comparison, we talk about comparison in every aspect of life, but I was on Instagram the other day, so my little girls are in dance, and I don't know how, but this little kid dancing came on, and she was fantastic. And I was like, my girls, that's it. We are upping their dance lessons.
Yeah.
Like they're nowhere near the
Nice.
shows. Yeah, but it's, you know, we compare, and
Absolutely.
it can, even against these siblings. My third child, she was very quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, she was the one, and with the clinical background, I did try to diagnose her a couple of times. But
Yeah.
and I got an email from her teacher. They want to test her for the gifted and talented program. And so she is just different. She thinks differently.
That's right.
She takes information in. So she is more quiet. She is
Yes.
a lot more reserved. Her brain works differently.
Differently.
And so I've even, you know, the Lord's brought me back to those days where I genuinely was worried for her at certain times. And if something would have been there, you know, we would have, you know, walked through that. But I think we can bring grief on ourselves or
Yes.
stress on ourselves when, like you said, if we'll just wait and allow the Lord to, you know, guide us, and of course go to professionals who can also do that.
Absolutely.
We'll probably save ourselves a lot of stress.
Absolutely. And once you do find out that, okay, there's something there, you know, you will have to, again, first, let's deal with you.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I don't want any parent to hear that, oh, there it go again, it's my fault. I have to be the one, I'm the responsible. But I feel like the reason why in my program, I start with the parents first, because you are the navigators of this whole system. You're the ones that are gonna continue, not just in breastfeeding, you're gonna continue to release fuel down to your children as they're developing, or caregiver or whoever, where it's a village, right? It still takes a village to raise a family. Even though we've gone away from that, it still does take a village. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be hesitant to talk to someone. You know, there's no shame, right? If your doctor told you your child was needed a hearing aid, there would be no hesitation for you to get the hearing aid or get the help that you need. So it's the same thing, even with a neural challenge. It's important for you to take ownership of what you have. That is the biggest thing, and it's hard. It is not easy. But we must each take ownership of our own story.
I love that.
Because it's beautiful, and God knew everything concerning us. Before the foundations of the world, He already made provision for each mom or each dad out there, for each child out there. He already made the provision. And so with that, I think about, just to go into this, because this is what this reminds me of, I think about the story of Lazarus. You know, Mary and Martha knew Jesus to be a healer, right? If you would have showed up and you would have healed right now, we wouldn't even have to have this situation. They wanted the familiar. They wanted what was comfortable. They wanted what they knew Jesus could do. But when you step outside of that, it's like Jesus withheld Himself. Because his only interest was bringing his Father the greatest reward. So likewise, us as the children of God, in our families, in our own personal lives, whether you have children or not, our greatest desire is set up to bring our Father the greatest reward. What is that? Jesus wanted to come and raise the dead. So however that looks in your family, and I know that's a different kind of story, but what kind of resurrection does He wants to do in your own family? That would also resurrect somebody else that's going to watch your family. So that is this.
So good.
Right.
That is.
Well, and I have
ahead.
a question that you just took my question to this whole other place now.
Sorry.
No, it's good. My original question was, I've seen a lot of families who have, even if it's just a hyper kid, maybe it's nothing that's needing wheelchair accessibility kind of thing, but they have other kids. And how do you manage both? Because I've seen, there's certain kids that their time is more sensitive and there's more needs than the other kids. And how do you help parents navigate parenting and stewarding both equally to what the Lord wants? But you just took it to another level, because there's life to be birthed out of what to us looks dead. Obviously, we're not speaking that all children that are dead come back to life, but in these situations that our dreams are dead,
Yes.
what does that look like? How do you navigate the parent and help them with both sets of children at the same time?
Yes.
To not neglect either side.
Yeah. It is going to be trial and error, right? For one. And for two, it won't always be equal.
That's good. The fluid ebb and flow.
Yeah, it won't always be equal, but what you do want to do is pay attention to resentment. You know, when it comes to a child who is typical and they're the sibling of a child who is neurodiverse. And so this is the reason why I teach assign purpose, because when you can assign your children purpose and educate them on what kind of sibling they are, you empower them and what the place that they play in that house. Then they automatically just like, oh, I'm my brother's keeper. You know what I mean? And so I think
And that could be without a neurodivergent
Yes,
child.
that's
I'm thinking of
a-
y'all.
yeah.
I mean, that's so
Absolutely, yeah.
good.
Absolutely. But make sure that you take some time and set aside time specifically for that child who is neurotypical. Take them on dates.
Love that.
Acknowledge their feelings. Check in with them and say, hey, how are you feeling about your role in your brother's life or your sister's life right now? What do you need from us? It's all about the connection and making, having these conversations and treating them like they belong.
Yeah.
And once you do that, it's like, okay, yeah, we're in this together.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say.
And as we begin to wrap up this episode, I just wanted to, to quickly just hit on again with what you said about resurrection, right? And I think that is a word that we can take into the future, right? What is God wanting to resurrect in your life?
Yeah.
Whether you have children or not, whether you're married or not, what is God wanting?
desires.
Desires. Like, what is God wanting to resurrect so that He can get the glory and that others around you can see His resurrection power through you and through your story. And I just love how you were able to intertwine that with family. And I believe that today we were all reminded of the power of family, whether blood related, whether it's friends, like we all need each other, and there's a place and a role for us. And just the importance of belonging, which aligns with what In the Middle is about, right? So
Where can people get more information from you, connect with you, follow you?
Yes, on social media, I am Fearless Love Parenting and Summer Fruitful. Those are two different separate pages. And then you can reach me on my website at www.fearlessloveparenting.org.
And we'll have that information in the show notes for you so that you're able to connect with her, reach out to her, let her know if today's episode really ministered to you. And again, let us know in the comments, you guys. We are a YouTube In the Middle family, right?
Yes,
we
we
love
are.
reading your comments and hearing what part of the episode really resonated with you. So let's just rally together and support one another in our journey.
And just remember, there's always laughter
Hope
And belonging.
in the middle. See you next time.